I'm going to be introducing one of our very, very special Scheck Hillel faculty members who, if you didn't know, actually, this very special faculty member, this very special rabbi, teaches for Scheck Hillel, but lives in the land of Israel. We have heard from him earlier in the year during Lion Time, and it's my complete pleasure and absolute privilege to introduce Rabbi Uri Pilichowski. He is a high school rabbi and teacher, and he's been around the Scheck Hillel family for many years. And after a few years at Hillel, he had the privilege to move to Israel and continue teaching via Zoom long before Zoom was a thing, before Corona. Long before that, Rabbi Pilichowski has been teaching our high school students about Israel and Torah and Talmud and all those great things via the internet from his home in Eretz Israel. And as you guys know, there has been a lot of action in Israel in the last week or so. And sometimes we don't fully understand what's going on in Israel. Why is it happening? Who is it happening to? Where is it happening? And all these big questions. And it's understandable, even as adults, we have these questions of what's going on in Israel. But sometimes we need to call on an expert, someone that really understands the situation and really can give us like an insider view on what's going on the ground. And so we've asked Rabbi Pilichowski to take some time from his very busy day and to join us during Lion Time and explain to us a little bit more in depth what's going on in Israel, and to maybe put your minds, like, give it some perspective, help us understand all of the details. So Rabbi Pilichowski, the floor is yours. Please feel free to share your screen. Thank you very much. And if you can, it's been a few months since we heard from you, so give us a little review of who you are, what you do, where do you live, why do you live there, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ishai. Okay, it's great to be back with you guys. I am right now in Israel. This is where I live, as Ishai said. I live right outside of Yerushalayim. So if you've been to Yerushalayim and you've gone, let's say, to the Dead Sea, you floated on your back in the Dead Sea and tried to swim, but you couldn't, and tried to go under the water and you couldn't. That's where I live. I live right between Yerushalayim and the Dead Sea, and I absolutely love it here. This is the best. Miami's nice, but this is the very, very best. It's great here. I've come here to tell you all about what's going on in Israel. That's going to be my goal. But first, I have to ask you a question. Can you just raise your hand if you've been to Israel already? Just raise your hand if you've been to Israel. Okay. This is me. You've never been to Israel? There we go. Okay, I got to make sure everyone's paying attention. Okay, so there we go. So all of you that have been to Israel, that's great. You'll know some of the places I'm talking about. And if you haven't been to Israel, no problem. This is what we're going to do today, okay? We're going to cover how we got here to the situation that we're in. We're going to explain what actually is happening and maybe a little of what can we expect going forward, okay? That's what we're going to be doing. All three of these points we're going to try to hit today. And then maybe if we have time, we'll take some of your questions. First of all, I just want to show you a map. Okay, this is a map of Israel. I have to go this way. This is a map of Israel. Just so you know where I live, I am standing right here, right now. That's where I am, right here. You can see here's Yerushalayim, and this is where I am. Okay, now I have to tell you guys something, because if you look at the news, you're gonna hear something that's not true. So I have to tell you the truth. Okay, it's 4 letters, and the 4 letters are SAFE, safe. Israel is safe. On the news, they're going to make it seem like it's not safe here, that everyone's so scared. Look at me. Do I look scared? I'm not scared. Everyone's a little careful, a little more careful than they usually are, but we are not scared. We're not scared. Israel is safe. The Israel that you've been on vacation is the same exact Israel. I went out to eat today for shawarma. Everyone loves shawarma. I went out with my family in a restaurant. We had shawarma today. I went to check out a new school for my son. He's in 6th grade. So we went to look for a new school, because sometimes here you switch in 7th grade in Israel to a new school. So we went to look for a new school, and we were not scared at all. It is fine here. It's even sunny. Well, the sun's going down right now, but because we're later than you. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. Now, you see all these red balloons on my map here? Okay, those red balloons are where somebody, an organization that we don't like too much, Hamas, is firing rockets at this organization, at us. Okay, they're firing rockets at Israel. And the red balloons are where the rockets landed. Now, I can't point all the way across because I can't do it, but if you look, I'm going to try to see if I can move my hand over. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So you see where it says right here, it has a little line here. This is an area called Gaza. Okay, in Hebrew, it's called Gaza. Okay, and that's where Hamas is. Hamas doesn't like us too much. Okay, and they're firing rockets here. That sounds a little scary. And I have to tell you the truth, sometimes it can be a little scary. It can be a little scary in the middle of the night. And Israel has alarms that go off and tell you if a rocket's coming. So you're never surprised if there's a rocket. There's an alarm. Where I live, you can see, we don't have the red balloons, so we don't really have alarms. But sometimes the people that live here, in the middle of the night, there's alarms, and then they have to run to a room. Everybody has a room in their house where it's safe to be. Even if a rocket hits your house, you'll be safe. So everybody runs to the room. They sit there. You can use your cell phone in the room. You can stand there. You can play games. Everybody does something different in their rooms. Okay, those are called safe rooms. So that's what's going on. Now, here's my question. How did we get here? By the way, when Israel fights back, it drops bombs on the people sending over the rockets. And these are the explosions that happen. This isn't in Israel. This is in Gaza, okay? And that's what you're looking at a picture. Now, what happened that got us here? Why all of a sudden are these bad people, Hamas, sending rockets to us? Here's the crazy part. It's not about us. A little about us because they want to hurt us. That's why they're sending it to us. But inside Hamas, they're having basically a fight between Hamas and some other, we call Palestinians. They're having a fight. They have two groups, Hamas and Fatah. If you can remember those two names and you go home, or you are home and turn to your parents and say, we learned about Hamas and Fatah, your parents are going to say, my gosh, my kid is so smart. He should go straight to the high school, maybe college. So if you can remember those two names, you'll be really good. Hamas and Fatah. Oh, wait, that's cheating. You should have wrote it down for you. Okay, so Hamas and Fatah, and they're having a big fight. They both want to rule over the Palestinians. So how do they do it? How do they show who's more popular? Who can hit Israel? So we get caught in the middle of their fights. That's one reason why it's happening. A second reason is they're jealous. 4 great countries. United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, that's a hard name to say properly, Sudan, and why am I forgetting? Someone else can help me out here. Yishai. Who's the 4th one in the Abraham Accords? I've just totally forgot.
You said
what?
You said UAE, Bahrain. Is it Oman?
Sudan and Qatar. No, I forgot the 4th one. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, they're our friends. Sometimes you forget your friends' names. So they became friends with us. Okay. And the Palestinians said, wait a minute, hold on a second. How come we're being left out of this? We want more attention. Do you know when you have that kid in your classroom that's not getting attention and he sometimes wants attention and he acts up and he hurts somebody else just to get attention? That's what Hamas is doing.
Is it Morocco?
Yes, Morocco.
Okay, so Rabbi Hachner said it was Morocco, and he's right.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. Another thing that's leading to it is these are days of the Arab Muslims have a holiday that goes for 40 days. They fast every day for 40 days. They eat at night, and that's called Ramadan. At the end of Ramadan, they're really hungry. So we're at the end of Ramadan, and sometimes they have bad people that tell people you should really hurt the Jews. Now, most Muslims don't believe this. Most Muslims are very friendly. In America, you never have a mosque that causes any trouble at the end of Ramadan. It's only a few mosques. And sometimes at the end of Ramadan, some of their rabbis, which are called imams, tell their people you should really start trouble. Okay, what can you do? That's what they teach their people. Sometimes people learn bad lessons. Lastly, there's a place in Yerushalayim, a neighborhood called, you ready for this one? Scheck. Okay, can you guys say that? Everybody try saying that because it's fun to say it. It's right near my house, and I like saying it a lot every time I drive through. It's written right here, but it looks different in English. Okay, number 7, Scheck. Okay, now in Hebrew, Scheck. Everybody can say that. Okay, in Hebrew, it's called Shimon HaTzadik, after one of the Kohen Gadol who lived 2,000 years ago. But in Arabic, it's called Scheck. And it's actually on the signs, it says Scheck. I just like saying it over and over. So as long as I can keep saying it without you telling me to stop, I'm going to keep saying it. Now, Sheikh Jarrah is a neighborhood, and there are houses in Sheikh Jarrah that some Jews think are theirs, and some Arabs think they're their houses. Here in Israel, we don't fight over houses, we go to court. And the Jews won the case. They have to go one more case, but they're going to win the case, and they're going to take the houses. And there are Arabs living in those houses. They don't want to leave. So a lot of people are demonstrating, and that gives, if we go back to number 6 in Ramadan, it gives some of the people that like to give a bad message an excuse to say, they're stealing our houses. No one's stealing a house. We went to court, and the judge decided according to the law. So all of these factors all together get everybody very riled up, very upset, and then the fighting starts. That's not a good thing. We like peace here, okay? So that's what got us here, all of these things together. So it's not one thing that got us together. Let's just review. It's a lot of fighting between the Palestinians, okay? Between, let's see if you remember, Hamas and Fatah, okay? Hamas and Fatah, between the two of them. A little bit of Ramadan thrown in the mix. And here we go again, Sheikh Jarrah. Okay, so if you have all of those together, that's what leads. Now, what is actually happening? So if anybody remembers and recognizes this area, this is where the Beit HaMikdash used to be. You see this gold dome over here? Okay, so this gold dome is the Beit HaMikdash used to be right here. See right here, they destroyed it. And then a couple hundred years later, the Muslims built this dome. This isn't their Al-Aqsa Mosque. This isn't their famous mosque where they pray. Everybody thinks it's here, but it's really this building. Nobody knows that. Just us. Okay? That's really the truth. They never ever pray here. They pray here. They consider this whole area kadosh to them, and so do we. Everybody does. We're supposed to be sharing it, and everybody's supposed to come and daven together there. That's what's supposed to happen. Sometimes there's fighting. Now, unfortunately, there's protests there, and some bad Arabs come there. Some good Arabs come just to pray. Tens of thousands come just to pray. And some bad troublemakers come with big rocks and try throwing it at Israelis. Not a good thing. That's number one that's happening, okay? But you should know, you can still go to the Kotel. You can still go to Yerushalayim, and you can daven. You see behind Yishai? Yishai is about, if you can still see him, right? So I don't know if everybody can see him the way the screen's set up. But if you go to the Kotel today, you can daven perfectly safe, no problem, okay? Another thing that's happening is that Hamas is firing rockets. This is what it looks like when they fire rockets. We talked a little about it before. Now, half of these rockets don't work. I don't know if you did a science project in 5th grade of sending up a rocket, and sometimes your 5th grade project goes really well, and the rocket goes way up in the sky, and you're like, whoa, so cool. Other times it goes, and it just fizzles down. Most of their rockets just fizzle down, and that's what happens. Some of them, though, come. Now, here's the good thing. The ones that make it into Israel, we have this really great thing called Iron Dome. An Iron Dome, in Hebrew, it's called Kippat Barzel. See if you can remember that one. Kippat, right? Like Kippat. Barzel. Barzel means out of iron, right? It's made out of iron. An iron dome, because your people looks like a dome, okay? Why is it called a dome? Because it builds like a shield almost. And when they send up one of these rockets into the air, the Iron Dome sends up a missile and blows it up right in the middle. It's really amazing. I've seen it right in front of my eyes looking into the sky, and it is an incredible thing. So the Iron Dome stops 90% of these rockets from coming into Israel and saves lives every day. Now, here's the amazing thing. Do you know who paid for the Iron Dome? It wasn't Israel, it was America. And that's why America and Israel have such a great relationship, because when Hamas started firing these rockets years and years ago, America said we have to help and make sure that our friends in Israel don't get hurt. Now, we're not talking about just American Jews. We're talking about all Americans. The American government sent money over to do that, okay? So that's something. Now, this is really sad what's happening. Inside some Israeli cities, there's fighting going on between Arabs and Israelis, and they have done some really horrible things. Here's a picture of a shul, of a synagogue, of a Beit Knesset that Arabs burnt down. You can see the shul is burnt, the synagogue is burnt, and a man is walking out of the Beit Knesset with the Sefer Torah. And he's coming out with the Sefer Torah in order to save the Sefer Torah. And thank God it wasn't burnt in the fire, but that's what happened. And there's fights going on. But now, thankfully, Prime Minister Netanyahu made a decision to send in more and more soldiers to cities to calm everything down. So it's still some places, it's still a little hairy at nights, and you have to be careful. And people they stay at home, but most cities it's perfectly peaceful and quiet. Just some cities you've had some bad things happen when you have these riots that go on. Okay, we have some terrorism that's happening. That usually happens a lot. You have some Arabs that try to shoot people, to stab people, and that's really bad. I don't want to make light of that and make it seem like it's not serious. It's serious, but it's only in certain places and not really where I've never really felt it or seen it. Okay, what is going to happen going forward? Okay, going forward, we hope, and this is what I daven for every day, and I hope that you join me in davening, because your tefillot really make a difference. You should know that they really, really do make a difference. So if you daven every single day really hard, we hope is that this will all end soon. The protests in Yerushalayim will end, right, with the rocks that they're throwing. We hope that Hamas will stop shooting rockets, okay? And we hope that we're fighting Hamas now. We're bombing their cities, but we hope that we're going to have to stop doing that, and we don't have to do it anymore. We want shalom. You know, at the end of our Shemona Esrei, we say sim shalom, right? We ask Hashem to bring peace. That's really important to us. That's really what we want. That's the best case scenario, okay? And we hope that the riots in the cities will go down, that no more Bate Knesiot will be burnt down, and nobody else will be hurt. We hope there won't be terrorism. And we hope that in Sheikh Jarrah, here you see Israelis and Palestinians yelling at each other in that neighborhood in Jerusalem over one of these houses. We hope that everybody will just listen to the police and listen to the courts, and everything will go well. Okay, now Isha, I don't know how much time